The wedding invitation fell from my fiancé's jacket pocket like a death sentence. Elegant calligraphy. Expensive cardstock. Christian Hayes requests the honor of your presence at his marriage to Victoria Lancaster, 2 weeks before our wedding date. I stood there, frozen, holding proof that the man I loved had been planning to marry someone else all along. Welcome to Stories by Jason. If you're settled in and ready for a good story, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I've got another exciting story coming your way tomorrow, and trust me, you don't want to miss it. Thank you so much for the love and support. You're truly appreciated, and I'm so grateful to have you here with me. The cream-colored envelope slipped from Christian's charcoal suit jacket like a secret desperate to be told. I'd only meant to check the pockets before taking his suits to the dry cleaner, a mundane Tuesday evening task in the apartment we'd shared for 2 years. The envelope was heavier than normal correspondence, the kind of weight that meant expensive cardstock and careful attention to detail. I should have left it alone. But something about the way it had been hidden in the inside pocket, something about the careful placement, made my fingers move before my mind could stop them. I slid out the card, and my entire world shifted on its axis. Christian Alexander Hayes and Victoria Ann Lancaster request the honor of your presence at their marriage. The words blurred as my eyes scanned down. The venue, the Grandview Estate, one of the most exclusive wedding locations in the city. The date, my breath caught in my throat, June 8th, 2 weeks, exactly 14 days before Christian and I were supposed to exchange vows. I read it again, then again. My mind scrambled for rational explanations, a mistake, a bizarre coincidence, someone else named Christian Hayes, but the address was correct, the Hayes family estate in Connecticut, and there, in smaller print at the bottom, reception to follow, black tie required, the Hayes and Lancaster families unite. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the leather sofa we picked out together last spring. The invitation trembled in my hands. 3 years. 3 years of planning a future, of compromises and adjustments, of slowly molding myself into what Christian needed. 3 years of meeting his family's expectations, of learning which fork to use at formal dinners, of sitting through endless business conversations where I smiled and nodded and stayed strategically silent. 3 years of being the perfect fiancé to a man who had secretly planned to marry someone else first. The apartment door opened, and Christian walked in, phone pressed to his ear, expensive briefcase in hand. He looked every inch the successful corporate attorney, tailored Tom Ford suit, perfectly styled dark hair with just enough silver at the temples to suggest gravitas, the kind of confident stride that came from never having to question whether he belonged somewhere. "I'll have the contracts revised by tomorrow," he said into the phone, not looking at me. "The Lancaster merger is our top priority, everything else is secondary." He paused, laughed at something the person said. "Trust me, Victoria's father won't be disappointed. This alliance will benefit both families for generations." Alliance, benefit, merger. Not love, not commitment, not partnership. The phone call ended, and Christian finally noticed me sitting there. His eyes went to the invitation in my hands, and for just a fraction of a second, something flickered across his face. Not guilt, not even surprise, annoyance. Like I'd stumbled onto something I wasn't supposed to see and was now complicating his carefully laid plans. "Maya," he set down his briefcase with deliberate calm, "I can explain." "Can you?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, too steady, too cold. "Because I'm trying to understand how you're marrying someone else 2 weeks before our wedding, and I can't quite work out the logistics." Christian loosened his tie, that familiar gesture he always made when preparing to negotiate. Because that's what I was to him, I realized with sickening clarity. A negotiation. A contract to be managed. "It's business," he said, as if that explained everything. As if those 2 words could justify 3 years of lies. "The Lancaster family controls the largest real estate development firm on the East Coast. Victoria's father made it clear, a marriage alliance or no deal. It's worth $800 million, Maya. This merger will establish the Hayes name as..." "You're marrying her for business." The words came out as barely a whisper. "It's strategic." He moved closer, his tone shifting to the gentle patience he used when explaining complex legal concepts. "Victoria understands what this is. It's a formality, a piece of paper that makes her father happy and secures both our families' futures. We've already discussed the terms: separate residences, minimal public appearances, a quiet dissolution after 2 years once the merger is secure. And me, I stood, my whole body trembling. What am I in this strategy, Christian? You're the woman I love. He said it so smoothly, so easily. This thing with Victoria, it's not real, it's not what we have. You and I will still get married, we'll have the life we planned. Nothing changes between us. Nothing changes, I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. You're marrying another woman in 2 weeks and you think nothing changes. Maya, be reasonable. His jaw tightened, the first crack in his composed facade. You know how important this merger is for my career, for our future. The money from this deal will set us up for life. We're talking about generational wealth, security beyond what either of us ever imagined. I don't want money from your fake marriage. I set the invitation on the coffee table between us like evidence in a trial. I wanted a real partnership. I wanted someone who loved me enough to choose me. I am choosing you. He reached for my hands, but I pulled away. Victoria is a transaction. You're my actual life. Can't you see the difference? The tragedy was I could see the difference. And that's what made it so much worse. To Christian, this made perfect sense. Marry Victoria for profit, keep Maya for love. 2 separate compartments, 2 different purposes, both serving his ambitions. He genuinely couldn't understand why I was upset. Did you even consider telling me? I asked. Or were you just going to disappear for a weekend, marry Victoria, and show up for our wedding rehearsal like nothing happened? I was going to tell you after. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated now. Once everything was settled, once you could see that it didn't affect us, I knew you'd be emotional about it if you found out beforehand, and I needed to handle the Lancaster negotiations without distractions. Distractions, that's what my feelings were, inconvenient distractions from his master plan. Who else knows? My mind was already moving through our social circle, imagining the humiliation. Your family, your friends. My parents know. They approve. They understand the value of strategic alliances. My father married for business twice before he met my mother. He said this like it was normal, like the Hayes family's transactional approach to relationships was something to be proud of. Victoria's family knows, obviously. A few key business partners. Everyone who matters understands that this is how things work at our level, Maya. Our level, as if I'd ever truly belonged there. I thought about Christian's mother, Alina, with her cold smile and calculating eyes. The way she'd assessed me at our first meeting like I was a painting she was considering purchasing, examining my background, my education, my family's lack of prestigious connections. The subtle disappointment she'd expressed, my degree from a state school instead of an Ivy League, my work as an interior designer instead of something more substantial, my middle-class upbringing in Ohio instead of old money from the Northeast. I'd thought I could prove myself worthy. I'd thought love would be enough. I'm not doing this, I said quietly. Christian blinked. Not doing what? This, any of this. I looked around the apartment, seeing it differently now. The furniture we'd chosen together, except I deferred to his taste on everything. The artwork on the walls, his preferences, his style. Even the coffee table books were about architecture and design movements he appreciated. Where was I in this space? What had I actually chosen? You're being irrational, Christian's voice hardened. I understand you're upset, but you need to think about this logically. What we have is real. What I'm doing with Victoria is business. Those are 2 separate things. They're not separate to me. I moved toward the bedroom, my legs feeling steadier now. Purpose driving out the shock. I won't be someone's backup plan. I won't be the woman you come home to after you've finished your business marriage. I won't build a life on that foundation. Maya, stop. He followed me, watching as I pulled my suitcase from the closet. You're throwing away 3 years over something that has nothing to do with us. The wedding is still on. Our wedding. In 2 weeks. After yours. It's not real. It's real enough that you'll sign a marriage certificate. I was shouting now, all the composure cracking. It's real enough that you'll stand in front of a minister and make vows. It's real enough that you hid it from me. Because I knew you'd react like this. He grabbed my arm, not hard but firm, desperate. I knew you'd make it about emotions instead of logic. This is a business decision, Maya. It's not personal. I stared at him, this man I'd planned to spend my life with, and felt the last threads of connection snap. Christian, marriage is personal. Love is personal. The fact that you don't understand that tells me everything I need to know. I packed quickly, just the essentials, things that were undeniably mine. My laptop, my design portfolios, the photographs of my family, clothes and toiletries. Everything else could wait. I needed to get out before my resolve weakened, before his logic started to make terrible sense. "Where will you even go?" Christian demanded, following me to the door. "Your apartment is sublet. Your savings are in our joint account. You've built your entire life around us, Maya." He was right, and that realization hit hard. I'd gradually moved my life into his orbit, let my friendships fade because they didn't fit his social circle, taken on projects that aligned with his schedule, made myself smaller and smaller until I fit perfectly into the space he designated for me. "I'll figure it out," I said, hand on the doorknob. "This is ridiculous." His tone shifted again, trying authority now. "You're going to walk away from everything we built because of a business arrangement. Do you know how many women would understand what I'm offering you? Stability, security, a place in society." "I don't want a place in society," I interrupted. "I wanted a place in your heart. I wanted to be chosen. But you can't give me that, can you, Christian? Because in your world everything is a transaction. Everyone has a price or a purpose, and I'm done being traded." I opened the door. "Maya," his voice finally cracked, revealing something raw underneath. "Please, I do love you, in my own way I do." I looked back at him, this handsome, successful, emotionally bankrupt man, and felt something close to pity. "I know you do. That's the saddest part. You love me as much as you're capable of loving anyone. But Christian, your way of loving people is exactly the problem." The door closed behind me with a quiet click that felt louder than any slam. I stood in the hallway, suitcase in hand, with nowhere to go and no plan beyond getting away. My phone buzzed, Christian calling already. I silenced it and walked toward the elevator. In the mirrored walls, I caught my reflection. Maya Santos, 29 years old, with her sensible work clothes and carefully straightened hair, and the remnants of a life built on someone else's blueprint. I looked like a stranger to myself. The elevator descended, and with each floor, I felt the weight lifting. The pressure to be perfect, to fit in, to smooth over my rough edges and pretend I belonged in Christian's world of strategic marriages and generational wealth and cold calculations. I stepped out into the June evening, the city noise washing over me, car horns and distant sirens, and the sound of people laughing from a nearby restaurant. Real sounds. Messy, imperfect human sounds. My phone lit up again. Not Christian this time. Sarah, my college roommate, the friend I'd gradually lost touch with because she didn't fit into Christian's social events. I answered. "Maya, oh my God, it's been forever. I was just thinking about you. Are you free for dinner tomorrow? I know it's last minute, but—" "Sarah," my voice broke, "can I come stay with you for a while?" There was a pause, then her voice shifted, all the casual cheerfulness replaced with immediate concern. "Of course. Where are you? I'm coming to get you right now." I gave her the address, then sat on the bench outside Christian's building. Christian's building, not ours. It had never been ours, and waited. The evening was warm, the sky turning that particular shade of purple that meant summer was truly here. In 2 weeks, I should have been getting married. Instead, I was starting over with nothing but a suitcase, and the dignity I'd almost traded away. A black town car pulled up to the curb. The driver got out and I recognized him, Marcus, the Hayes family driver. He opened the back door and an older man emerged. Tall, silver-haired, wearing a casual linen suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary but somehow didn't look pretentious. He had Christian's bone structure but none of his coldness, his eyes sharp but warm. "Maya Santos?" he asked, his voice deep and surprisingly gentle. I stood wary. "Yes." "Dante Hayes." He extended his hand and I shook it reflexively. "Christian's uncle. Well, estranged uncle. I happened to be visiting a leaner when Christian called, rather upset. Something about his fiancé leaving over a misunderstanding about business arrangements." The way he said, "misunderstanding," made it clear he knew exactly what had happened. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes, but I'm waiting for a friend." "I know, and she'll be here soon, I'm sure." He glanced at my suitcase. But I thought you might benefit from hearing a perspective that isn't from the Hayes party line. May I buy you a coffee while you wait? There's a cafe just around the corner. I should have said no. Should have waited for Sarah and disappeared into safety. But something about Dante Hayes made me curious. He wasn't like Christian or a leaner. There was no calculation in his eyes, no assessment of my value. Why would you help me? I asked. I'm walking away from your nephew. Dante smiled, sad but genuine. That's exactly why I want to help you. Because you're the first person in my family's orbit in years who's chosen integrity over convenience. And because 20 years ago, I made a different choice than you're making now. I want to make sure you know that you're doing the right thing. Something in his words resonated. I picked up my suitcase. Okay, coffee, but just until my friend arrives. That's all I ask. He gestured toward the corner, and we walked together into the twilight, leaving Christian's building and Christian's world behind. I didn't know it yet, but this chance meeting would change everything. Not because Dante Hayes would rescue me, I didn't need rescuing, but because he would show me what it looked like when someone chose you not for what you could provide, but for who you actually were. The cream-colored invitation that had destroyed my life sat in Christian's apartment, proof of his betrayal. But walking away from it, suitcase in hand and stranger beside me, I felt something unexpected blooming beneath the heartbreak. Freedom. The cafe was one of those rare places in the city that felt genuinely unpretentious. Exposed brick walls, mismatched furniture, the rich smell of freshly ground coffee beans. Nothing like the sleek, minimalist establishments Christian preferred, where the espresso cost $18 and came with a lecture about single-origin sustainability. Dante ordered 2 cappuccinos without asking what I wanted, and somehow got it exactly right. Not too sweet, not too bitter. We sat by the window, my suitcase tucked beside me like a loyal dog, watching the city move past in streams of yellow cabs and hurried pedestrians. A leaner called me a disgrace to the family name, Dante said without preamble, stirring his coffee slowly. This was 23 years ago. I was 31, being groomed to take over Hayes Capital Management, engaged to a senator's daughter named Catherine. Perfect pedigree, perfect connections, perfect opportunity to expand the family's political influence. He paused, taking a sip. I waited, sensing there was more. The problem was I didn't love her, and she didn't love me. We both knew it. But our families had arranged everything so carefully, invested so much in the alliance that backing out seemed impossible, unthinkable. You don't waste opportunities like that, my father told me. Love is for ordinary people. People like us build empires. What happened? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I married her anyway. Dante's expression darkened. Told myself the same things Christian told you. It's strategic. It's for the family. Love will grow. Or if it doesn't, we'll have comfortable lives and mutual respect. 2 years, Maya. 2 years of living separate lives in the same house. 2 years of attending charity galas as a united front while barely speaking during the car ride home. 2 years of watching Catherine become more and more hollow, just like me. He set down his cup, and I noticed his hands, strong, weathered, not the soft hands of someone who'd only ever signed papers and shaken hands at corporate lunches. On our 2nd anniversary, Catherine tried to kill herself. Pills, bathtub, locked door. I found her in time, barely. And you know what she said when she woke up in the hospital? I just wanted to feel something, anything, even if it was pain. My chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, be grateful you're smarter than I was. He leaned back, his gaze distant. We divorced quietly after that. Catherine moved to Paris, married a painter. Last I heard, she has 3 kids and runs an art gallery. She's happy. And I walked away from Hayes Capital Management, from the family fortune, from all of it. All of it, I echoed. Started over from scratch. Took the money I'd earned myself, not my trust fund, not my inheritance, and built a tech company, Hayes Industries. We developed sustainable energy solutions. Been doing it for 20 years now, and we're worth about $4 billion. But more importantly, I built it my way. No strategic marriages, no fake alliances, no treating people like chess pieces. He met my eyes directly. The Hayes family still considers me an embarrassment. A leaner doesn't speak to me except when she needs something. Christian probably barely knows I exist. But Maya, I sleep well at night. Can he say the same? The question hung in the air between us. I thought about Christian's face when I'd confronted him, not guilty, not conflicted, annoyed, frustrated that I wasn't being reasonable. He genuinely doesn't understand why I'm upset, I said quietly. To him, it really is just business. He thinks he's being smart, strategic. He thinks I'm being emotional and irrational. He's been raised to think that way. Dante's voice was gentle but firm. The Hayes family has been treating relationships as transactions for 4 generations. Christian's great-grandfather built the family fortune through a series of strategic marriages to heiresses. It's their playbook, their worldview. They literally don't understand that some people prioritize human connection over financial advantage. Then why are you telling me this? I asked. What do you want from me? Nothing, he smiled, and it transformed his face, making him look younger. I don't want anything from you, Maya. I'm telling you this because when you walk away tonight, there's going to be a voice in your head questioning your decision. Christian will call. His mother will call. They'll make you doubt yourself. They'll frame your choice as childish, as throwing away a good life over nothing. He leaned forward, his voice intense. But it's not nothing. Your dignity is not nothing. Your right to be truly chosen is not nothing. And I wanted you to hear from someone who made the wrong choice that you're making the right one. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I blinked them back. I don't even know where to start. I gave up my apartment. Most of my savings are in our joint account. My whole life was built around him. Then you build a new life, one that's actually yours. He pulled out a business card, wrote something on the back. This is my personal number. If you need anything, and I mean anything, you call me. A job reference, a loan, legal advice about your shared assets, or just someone to remind you that you're not crazy. No strings attached. No expectations. I took the card, suspicious despite myself. Why would you do this? You don't know me. Because 23 years ago, I needed someone to tell me it was okay to walk away from what looked perfect on paper but was destroying me from the inside. No one did. Everyone told me to be reasonable, to think about the family, to consider Catherine's feelings and her father's influence and the merger opportunities. So I stayed, and it nearly killed someone I cared about. He stood, leaving a $50 bill on the table, far more than the coffee cost. You're doing the brave thing, Maya. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. Through the window, I saw Sarah's beat-up Honda pull to the curb, her face anxious as she searched for me. I waved, and relief flooded her features. My friend's here, I said to Dante. Good, go be with people who actually care about you. He picked up my suitcase, carried it to the door like it weighed nothing. And Maya, what Christian and Victoria have, that strategic marriage built on business deals and family pressure. It will fail. Maybe not immediately, maybe not dramatically, but it will fail because you can't build anything lasting on that foundation. And what should it be built on? I asked. Choice. Every single day, choosing that person and being chosen in return. Not because of what they can provide or which doors they can open or how they fit into your 5-year plan. Just because when you see them, something in you says, yes, you, always you. The intensity in his voice made me study him more carefully. This wasn't theoretical for Dante. He was speaking from hard-won understanding. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Thank yourself. You're the one who walked away. He held the door open, and I stepped out into the evening, Sarah already rushing toward me, arms open. The next 2 weeks were a blur of logistics and grief. I stayed on Sarah's couch in her cramped 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. She worked as a pediatric nurse, and her schedule was chaotic, but she never once made me feel like a burden. Her apartment was tiny, cluttered with books and plants and mismatched thrift store furniture, and it felt more like home than Christian's pristine penthouse ever had. I called the joint account manager and discovered that legally I could withdraw my contributions. It wasn't much, about $35,000, but it was mine. Christian had put in nearly 3 times that amount, and I left every penny of his money untouched. I didn't want anything from him except my freedom. My phone rang constantly. Christian, trying different approaches, anger, reasoning, guilt, promises. Eleanor called exactly once, her voice ice cold. You're making a mistake that will haunt you for the rest of your life. Christian is offering you opportunities most women would kill for. I hung up before she could finish. The hardest call came from my mother in Ohio. She'd been so excited about the wedding, had already bought her dress, had bragged to all her friends about her daughter marrying into the Hayes family. "Mija," she said, her voice heavy with disappointment, "marriages aren't fairy tales. Sometimes you have to compromise. Sometimes you have to be practical. Christian is offering you security." "Mommy, he was marrying someone else first, for business." A long pause. Then softly, "Your father and I, we married for love. We've struggled every day of our lives because of it. Bills we couldn't pay, opportunities we couldn't afford, stress that aged us 20 years. I just wanted better for you." "I know," I was crying now. "But Mommy, I just can't." Another pause. Then I heard her sigh, and when she spoke again, her voice was different, warmer, sadder, but accepting. "Okay, Mija, okay. You always had more courage than sense. Come home if you need to. Your room is still here." June 8th arrived. Christian's wedding day to Victoria. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help checking social media. Someone had posted photos. The Grandview estate looking magnificent. Christian in a tuxedo that fit him like a glove, Victoria stunning in a designer gown that probably cost more than a car. They looked perfect together, like a magazine spread, like a corporate merger made flesh. I felt nothing. Not jealousy, not regret. Just a strange, detached observation that they matched each other's coldness perfectly. That evening, I was sitting in Sarah's apartment, mechanically eating takeout Thai food and trying to focus on a design project for a small client I'd taken on when my phone buzzed. Dante Hayes. "I know today is hard. If you need company, I'm at Cafe Morgana on the Upper West Side until 10 p.m. No pressure. Just wanted you to know the offer stands." I stared at the message for a long time. Sarah was working a night shift at the hospital. The apartment felt too small, too quiet, my thoughts too loud. What would I have been doing right now if everything had gone as planned? In 1 week, I would have been married to Christian. Tonight, he'd married someone else. I changed out of my sweatpants, put on actual clothes, a simple navy dress, the kind of thing that felt like armor, and took the subway uptown. Cafe Morgana was nothing like the place where we'd first met. This was elegant, mature, with soft jazz playing and candles on every table. Dante sat alone at a corner table, reading a book. He looked up when I approached, and his smile was so genuinely pleased that something in my chest loosened. "You came," he said simply. "I came." I sat down, suddenly nervous. "I'm not great company right now." "Good, I'm not looking for great company, I'm looking for honest company," he signaled the waiter. "Red or white?" "Red, something Italian and slightly too expensive." He ordered a bottle of Brunello di Montalcino that made the waiter's eyebrows raise appreciatively. When the wine arrived, Dante poured, and we sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just breathing and existing. "How are you?" he asked finally. "Honestly, I don't know. I keep waiting to feel devastated, but mostly I just feel like I put down something I'd been carrying for so long that I forgot it was heavy." I took a sip of wine. It was spectacular, rich and complex. "Does that make me a terrible person?" "It makes you a free person." He studied me over his glass. "The devastation comes later, usually. Right now, you're in survival mode. Your brain is protecting you. Give it time." We talked for hours. Not about Christian or Victoria or the wedding. About everything else. I told him about growing up in Cleveland, my parents' restaurant that had struggled but survived, my decision to study interior design because I loved the idea of creating spaces where people felt at home. He told me about building Hayes Industries from the ground up, the failures and near bankruptcies, the moment everything finally clicked. "I'm not good at strategic thinking," he admitted. "I'm too honest, too direct. In the tech world, especially in sustainable energy, that actually became an advantage. People trusted me because I meant what I said." "Christian would call that naive," I said. "Christian would be wrong." Dante poured more wine. "There's a difference between naive and principled. Naive means you don't understand consequences. Principled means you understand them perfectly and choose your values anyway." At some point the conversation shifted, became less about our pasts and more about the space between us. The way Dante listened, not waiting for his turn to talk but actually hearing me. The way his laugh sounded genuine, unguarded. The way he looked at me like I was a person worth knowing, not a trophy to be won or a connection to be leveraged. "I need to tell you something," he said as the cafe started emptying around us, the waiters politely ignoring that we'd stayed well past closing time. "I'm attracted to you, not because you're vulnerable right now, not because there's some poetic justice in my nephew's ex falling for his uncle, but because you're sharp and brave and you walked away from comfort to protect your dignity. That's rare." My heart hammered. "Dante, I can't." "I know, you're not ready. You might not be ready for months, years, maybe never." He reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching mine. "But I needed you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'm interested. Not in using you or fixing you or proving something to my family, just in knowing you, in choosing you if you'll let me." I looked at his hand, so close to mine but respecting the space between us. This man who had everything but wanted nothing except honest connection, who saw me at my lowest and offered help without expectation, who understood exactly what I'd walked away from because he'd made the same journey. "I'm terrified," I whispered. "Good, that means you're paying attention." He withdrew his hand, giving me space. "Take your time, Maya, I'm not going anywhere." We left together, and he insisted on paying for a car to take me back to Brooklyn. As I rode through the nighttime streets, watching the city lights blur past, I realized something fundamental had shifted. For 3 years, I'd been trying to fit myself into Christian's world, to become someone he could be proud of, to earn my place at his side. Dante didn't want me to fit anywhere. He wanted me exactly as I was, messy and uncertain, and still figuring out who I'd become without Christian's expectations shaping me. My phone buzzed. Christian calling from his wedding night. I declined it, then blocked his number. Whatever he had to say, I didn't need to hear it. That chapter was closed. But standing in front of me, unexpected and terrifying and real, was the possibility of something new. Something built on choice instead of strategy. Something that might actually last because it wasn't trying to be anything other than honest. I fell asleep on Sarah's couch that night thinking about Dante's eyes, and for the first time in 2 weeks, I didn't dream about wedding invitations or betrayal. I dreamed about freedom. 3 months passed like a strange dream, where I was both sleeping and waking up at the same time. I found a small studio apartment in Queens, nothing like Christian's luxury penthouse, but it was mine. The walls were slightly crooked, the radiator clanked in the winter, and the view was of a brick wall, but when I unlocked the door each night, I felt something I'd never felt in Christian's pristine space: peace. I started rebuilding my design business from scratch. Small projects at first: a dentist's office renovation, a young couple's first apartment, a boutique hotel lobby. Word spread. I wasn't chasing the high-end clients Christian had pushed me toward, the ones who wanted to show off their good taste more than create actual homes. I worked with people who needed help making their spaces feel like themselves. And every few weeks, Dante would call. Never pushy, never demanding, just, "There's a new Vietnamese restaurant in the West Village. Interested?" Or, "I'm thinking of hiking the Hudson Valley trails this weekend. Want to join?" Or simply, "How are you, Maya, honestly?" We became friends first. Real friends, the kind where you can share comfortable silences or talk about nothing or admit when you're struggling without fear of judgment. He told me about Hayes Industries' latest project, a revolutionary solar panel design that was showing promise. I told him about my nightmare client who wanted her apartment to look like Versailles on a Target budget. We didn't talk about Christian, not at first. But inevitably, the ghost crept in. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Christian and Victoria's marriage was already strained. They'd been photographed at separate events, rumors of arguments at family gatherings. The Lancaster merger was proceeding, but slower than anticipated, complicated by legal disputes and family politics. "He's called me," Dante admitted one evening as we walked through Central Park. It was September, the air just starting to hint at autumn. 3 times in the last month. Wants advice on managing his domestic situation. "What did you tell him?" I asked, genuinely curious. "That I'm not a marriage counselor, and even if I were, I have a conflict of interest." He glanced at me sideways. "He knows I'm seeing you, not the details but enough. He's not happy about it." My stomach tightened. "Does that complicate things for you?" "Maya," Dante stopped walking, turned to face me fully. "I haven't been to a Hayes family gathering in 20 years. I built my entire life separate from them specifically so I'd never have to care what they think. Christian's disapproval means less than nothing to me. But he's your nephew. He's my nephew by blood, not by choice. You, on the other hand, he paused, his expression softening. You I'm choosing. Every day I'm choosing you. Something in my chest cracked open. We were standing under a canopy of trees turning gold and amber, the city noise a distant hum, and Dante was looking at me like I was the only real thing in his world. I'm falling in love with you, I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. And it terrifies me because 3 months ago I was supposed to marry someone else, and maybe I'm just rebounding, and maybe. He kissed me, gentle at first, then deeper, his hand cupping my face like I was something precious and breakable and worth protecting. When we pulled apart, I was breathless. You're not rebounding, he said firmly. You're healing. And in the process of healing, you're discovering who you actually are without someone trying to shape you into what they need. That person, the real Maya, not the version Christian wanted, that's who I'm falling in love with. We were inseparable after that. Not in the obsessive, all-consuming way of new relationships, but in a partnership way that felt mature and chosen. Dante had his work, I had mine. We had our separate lives and separate friends, but we came together deliberately, purposefully, because we wanted to, not because we needed to fill some void. He showed me what it felt like to be with someone who respected my boundaries, who asked before assuming, who listened when I said I needed space and didn't take it personally, who celebrated my successes without making them about himself. You got the Carlisle Hotel contract. He spun me around his living room, a stunning loft in Tribeca that managed to be both elegant and comfortable. Maya, that's huge. They're one of the most prestigious boutique chains in the country. It's terrifying, I admitted. It's so much bigger than anything I've done before. So, you're bigger than you were before. He set me down, his eyes serious. You've been playing small to fit into other people's expectations. This is you at your actual size. Don't shrink now. In November, 5 months after I'd walked away from Christian, the news broke. Victoria Lancaster was filing for divorce. The tabloids had a field day. Strategic marriage falls apart in record time. Lancaster-Hayes merger in jeopardy. Victoria Lancaster, I refuse to be a transaction. That last headline made me smile. Victoria had apparently given an interview where she'd laid out the entire arrangement, the business marriage, the separate residences, the planned dissolution. She'd refused to play along with the fiction, and her honesty had torpedoed not just the marriage but the entire merger. The Lancaster family had pulled out completely, taking their $800 million with them. My phone rang, unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Maya, Eleanor Hayes's voice was acid. I hope you're pleased with yourself. Christian's marriage has failed. The most important business deal of his career is ruined, and the Hayes name is being dragged through the press. This is your fault. My fault? I actually laughed. Mrs. Hayes, I left. I didn't make Christian marry Victoria. I didn't make him treat marriage like a corporate merger. I didn't create the situation. I just refused to participate in it. You poisoned Victoria against the arrangement. She mentioned you in her interview, said something about women who choose dignity. You put ideas in her head. I've never met Victoria Lancaster in my life, I interrupted. If she chose dignity, that was her own decision, just like it was mine. Dante has corrupted you. Eleanor's voice shook with rage. He's turned you against this family, used you to get revenge for his own failures. Dante didn't corrupt me, Mrs. Hayes. He showed me what it looks like when someone values people over profit. That's not corruption. That's humanity. I hung up on her. My hands were shaking, but not with fear, with something else. Vindication, maybe, or just the simple satisfaction of standing up for myself without apology. The call from Christian came an hour later. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity and maybe a need for closure made me pick up. Maya, his voice was rough, exhausted. We need to talk. I don't think we do. Please hear me out. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him, a coffee shop in neutral territory. Dante offered to come with me, but I needed to do this alone. Christian looked terrible. His perfectly styled hair was disheveled, his suit wrinkled. The man who'd always seemed so composed and controlled looked like he'd been through a war. Victoria destroyed everything, he said without preamble. The merger, my career prospects, my family's reputation. She went to the press and made me look like a monster, all because she couldn't handle a simple business arrangement. Is that what you think? I asked quietly. That Victoria is the problem. She knew the terms, we both agreed. Christian, I leaned forward. Did you ever ask her how she actually felt? Not what she agreed to, but how she felt. He blinked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. Did you ever consider, I continued, that maybe she felt the same way I did, used, reduced to a transaction? Maybe she played along because that's what her family expected, just like you played along because it's what your family expected. But eventually she couldn't do it anymore, just like I couldn't. This isn't about feelings, Christian said, frustrated. This was a strategic alliance that benefited everyone. Except it didn't. It didn't benefit Victoria, it didn't benefit me. It didn't even benefit you, Christian. Look at yourself. You're miserable. I'm miserable because everything fell apart. No, I shook my head. You're miserable because you built your entire life on a foundation that can't support human happiness. Strategic marriages, transactional relationships, people as assets, that's not a life. That's a business plan. And business plans fail when they ignore human needs. So what was I supposed to do? He demanded. Turn down an $800 million merger, disappoint my family, be like Dante, some idealistic fool who walked away from everything for principles. Dante is worth $4 billion and sleeps well at night. You're worth whatever your family's money is worth, and you look like you haven't slept in weeks. Who's the fool? Christian's face hardened. You're with him, I heard rumors, but you're actually with my uncle. I'm with someone who chooses me, every day, deliberately and without conditions. Someone who sees me as a person, not a piece of his life strategy. I chose you, Christian's voice rose. I wanted you to be my actual wife, my real partner. Victoria was just a woman you married for business. Just someone whose feelings didn't matter. Just another transaction. I stood up. The problem isn't that you couldn't have both, Christian. The problem is that you thought you should be able to. That you thought you could marry Victoria and keep me, and everyone would just accept it because it made strategic sense. Maya, wait. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I'm not angry anymore, I said and meant it. I'm grateful. You showed me exactly what I don't want. And more importantly, you freed me to find what I do want. Dante, he said bitterly. Number myself. Dante is just smart enough to appreciate what he's found. I left Christian sitting there, and I didn't look back. Walking out of that coffee shop felt like the final chapter closing on a book I'd been trying to finish for 5 months. That evening Dante cooked dinner at his place. Nothing fancy, pasta carbonara, salad, good wine. We ate on his balcony overlooking the city lights. How did it go? He asked. He still doesn't understand. I don't think he ever will. I took a sip of wine. But I understand now. I understand that the life he offered me would have slowly suffocated everything real about me. I would have become like a leaner, cold and calculating and always measuring value instead of feeling love. You could never be like a leaner, Dante's voice was certain. You're too honest. It would have broken you before it changed you. It almost did break me, finding that invitation. It felt like the end of the world, but it was actually the beginning of choosing myself. He reached across the table, took my hand. Maya Santos, will you let me keep choosing you? Not because you need saving or because you fit into some plan, but because you're you and that's exactly what I want. Are you? I couldn't finish the sentence, my heart hammering. I'm asking you to be my partner, my real partner, to build a life with me based on choice and respect and the terrifying honesty of actually knowing each other. He smiled. I'm not offering you strategy, I'm offering you love. The messy, imperfect, choose-you-every-day kind of love, if you want it. I thought about the cream-colored invitation that had destroyed my old life. I thought about Christian and Victoria, trapped in their family's transactional worldview. I thought about Eleanor's cold voice and Christian's confusion when I'd walked away. And then I thought about the last 5 months. The studio apartment with crooked walls that felt like home. The design projects that excited me instead of just looking good on paper. The friendship that had grown into love because we'd had the time and space to actually know each other. Yes, I said. Yes, I want you, I choose you. We didn't rush into anything. That was the beautiful part. We didn't need to rush. We were building something meant to last, and lasting things require foundation, time, care. But sitting on that balcony, Dante's hand warm in mine, the city sparkling below us like promise made light, I knew with absolute certainty that I'd made the right choice. Not the strategic choice. Not the comfortable choice. Not the choice that would look good on paper or impress my mother or fit into anyone's 5-year plan. The right choice. The honest choice. The choice that said, I'd rather have real love with risk than fake security with guarantee. Christian had offered me the world according to the Hayes family playbook. Dante was offering me a chance to write my own story. I knew which one I wanted. The thing about rebuilding your life is that it doesn't happen in dramatic moments. It happens in Tuesday mornings and Sunday evenings, and the small, quiet decisions you make when no one is watching. A year after leaving Christian, I signed the lease on an actual office space for my design firm. Nothing huge, just 2 rooms in a converted warehouse in Dumbo, with exposed beams and huge windows overlooking the Manhattan Bridge. But it was mine. The sign on the door read, Maya Santos Design in clean, modern letters, and every time I saw it, I felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with anyone else's approval. Dante helped me move in, carrying boxes of fabric samples and paint chips and sketches like they were precious cargo. He didn't offer to invest in my business or introduce me to high-end clients or open doors with his connections. When I'd asked him why, he'd said simply, because you need to build this yourself, so you'll always know it's yours. That's who he was. Someone who understood that real support meant believing in someone's capability, not rescuing them from their challenges. We'd moved in together 6 months earlier, not into his Tribeca loft or my Queen studio, but into a brownstone in Park Slope we'd chosen together. 3 stories of renovated beauty that still needed work, with a backyard garden I was slowly bringing back to life, and a 3rd-floor office where Dante worked from home when he wasn't at Hayes Industries headquarters. It was ours, built on joint decisions and mutual compromise and the daily practice of choosing each other. I was reviewing fabric swatches for the Carlisle Hotel project when my phone rang. Unknown number, but something made me answer. Maya Santos, a woman's voice crisp and professional. Yes. My name is Victoria Lancaster. I know this is unexpected, but I was hoping we could meet for coffee. I nearly dropped my phone. Victoria, Christian's ex-wife, the woman whose wedding I'd seen in perfect, cold photographs, the woman whose divorce had been splashed across society pages and business news. Why? I asked carefully. Because you're the only person who might understand what I went through, and because, she paused, because I owe you an apology, though you probably don't know why. Curiosity won out over caution. We met the next day at a quiet cafe in the West Village, the kind of place where people went to have conversations they didn't want overheard. Victoria Lancaster was stunning in person, tall, graceful, with the kind of bone structure that suggested generational wealth and careful breeding. But her eyes were kind, and when she shook my hand, I felt genuine warmth. Thank you for meeting me, she said as we sat down. I know this is strange. You mentioned an apology, I said. Right, direct, I appreciate that. She stirred her coffee, gathering her thoughts. Before Christian and I were married, he told me about you. Not much, just that he'd been in a long-term relationship that ended because his partner wasn't sophisticated enough to understand business realities. He made you sound naive, emotional, someone who couldn't handle the complexities of his world. My jaw tightened, but I said nothing. I believed him, Victoria continued. I thought you were probably some insecure woman who'd thrown away a good opportunity because you couldn't share. The strategic marriage arrangement made sense to me. My family does the same thing. I thought you just weren't smart enough to play the game. And now, I asked. Now I know Christian is a gifted liar, especially to himself. You weren't naive. You were the only person in that situation who saw clearly. You walked away from someone who couldn't actually love you, and her voice cracked slightly. I stayed and tried to make it work. For 6 months, I tried to pretend I could live in a marriage built on contracts and clauses. It almost destroyed me. "Why did you go to the press?" I asked. "You could have divorced quietly." "Because I was angry," Victoria's eyes flashed. Angry that I'd been raised to think this was normal. Angry that my father had pressured me into it. Angry that Christian had the audacity to be surprised when I said I wanted out. But mostly, I was angry at myself for not being as brave as you. She reached into her bag, pulled out a folded magazine clipping. It was from a design blog, an interview I'd given about the Carlisle project. The headline: Designer Maya Santos on building spaces that honor authenticity. "I read this 2 months before I filed for divorce," Victoria said. "There's a quote where you talk about creating environments where people can be fully themselves without performance or pretense. And I thought, when was the last time I'd been in a space like that? When was the last time I'd been myself without calculating how it looked or what it gained me?" "That must have been hard to realize," I said quietly. "It was liberating," she smiled, sad but genuine. "I'm in therapy now, actually processing my feelings instead of strategizing around them. I started painting again, something I gave up because it wasn't serious enough. And I'm single by choice, which is terrifying but also free." We talked for 2 hours about Christian and the Hayes family and the strange, toxic culture of treating relationships like mergers, about the pressure to perform perfection while hollowing yourself out inside, about the courage it took to choose authenticity over approval. "Has Christian tried to contact you?" I asked finally. "Constantly at first. He wanted to fix the marriage, make it work, salvage the merger." Victoria's expression hardened. He couldn't understand why I was so emotional about what he saw as a practical arrangement. Finally, I told him, "Christian, I don't want to be married to someone who thinks love is a business strategy." He looked at me like I'd spoken in tongues. "That's the tragedy," I said. "He genuinely doesn't understand. The Hayes family has trained emotional capacity out of their children for so many generations that they've forgotten what it looks like." "Except Dante," Victoria said. "I met him once years ago. He was the family scandal, the uncle who walked away from everything for something as intangible as principles. Christian used to talk about him with contempt." She smiled knowingly. "I hear you two are together now." Heat rose to my face. "News travels. Eleanor called me, actually. Wanted me to warn you that Dante was using you to get back at the family. As if anyone could use you." Victoria laughed. "I told her that based on my observations. You're the first person to see the Hayes family clearly in decades, and Dante is smart enough to appreciate that." We exchanged numbers when we parted, with tentative plans to have dinner sometime. It felt strange, becoming friends with the woman my ex-fiancé had married, but also right. We'd both been victims of the same toxic system. We'd both found the strength to walk away. 6 months later, Dante proposed. Not with a flashy gesture or a public display, but on an ordinary Wednesday evening in our backyard garden. We were planting tomatoes, our hands dirty, the Brooklyn twilight turning the sky shades of purple and gold. "Maya," he said, still kneeling in the dirt, "I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you. Every morning, every night, every decision. Will you marry me?" The ring was simple, a vintage sapphire that had belonged to his grandmother, the one member of his family who'd supported his decision to leave Hayes Capital Management. No huge diamond to show off, no strategic choice of precious metal, just something beautiful and meaningful and real. "Yes," I said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, absolutely yes." We were married 3 months later in a small ceremony in the same Brooklyn garden, with 20 of our closest friends and Sarah as my maid of honor. No 500-person spectacle, no strategic guest list, no business mergers attached. Just people who genuinely loved us, celebrating our choice to build a life together. My mother cried through the entire ceremony. Afterward, she pulled me aside, cupped my face in her hands. "Mija, you were right. I was so afraid for you when you walked away from Christian. But this is what love should look like." Dante's family didn't attend. Eleanor had sent a curt message declining the invitation, making it clear that Dante's marriage to that woman was another embarrassment the family would have to endure. Christian sent nothing at all. We didn't care. The people who mattered were there. The love we'd built was ours, not contingent on anyone else's approval. The reception was in our backyard, catered by my parents' restaurant. the food I'd grown up with. Recipes that tasted like home and memory. We danced until midnight, Dante holding me close, his face lit with uncomplicated joy. "No regrets?" he asked, spinning me under the string lights we'd hung through the trees. "Not a single one," I said, and meant it absolutely. 2 years after that, I was sitting in my office, expanded now to 4 rooms, with 3 associate designers and a waiting list of clients, when an unexpected visitor arrived. Christian Hayes stood in my doorway, looking simultaneously older and younger than I remembered. The corporate armor was gone. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, his hair less perfectly styled. He looked like a person instead of a billboard. "Maya," he said, "I know I have no right to be here." I gestured to the chair across from my desk, curious despite myself. "What do you want, Christian?" "To apologize, really apologize, not just mouth the words." He sat down, his hands clasped between his knees. "I've been in therapy for 18 months. Actual therapy, where I have to look at my patterns and my family's dysfunction and the way I was raised to treat people like chess pieces. It's been brutal." "Good," I said simply. He smiled, a sad, self-aware expression I'd never seen on him before. "I hurt you. I hurt Victoria. I hurt myself, though I was too arrogant to recognize it at the time. I want to say I'm sorry, and I understand if you can't forgive me. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking you to know that I see it now. What I did. What it cost." "What changed?" I asked. "Victoria, partly. Her interview woke me up, but mostly, I saw you and Dante at a charity event 6 months ago. You were across the room and you were laughing at something he said, and he was looking at you like you were the entire world. And I realized I had never looked at you that way. I'd looked at you as an asset, a companion, a good choice, but never just you." He leaned forward. "I've wasted 3 years of therapy unpacking why I'm incapable of that kind of connection. Family conditioning, emotional suppression, being raised to value strategy over feeling. It's not an excuse, it's just an explanation." "Are you happy now?" I asked. "I'm learning to be. I left Hayes Capital Management. My father nearly disowned me. I'm working at a nonprofit now, helping restructure corporate governance in family businesses to reduce the kind of toxic dynamics I grew up with. The pay is terrible. My mother hasn't spoken to me in months, but I sleep at night, which is new." He stood to leave, then paused. "I hope you're happy, Maya, truly. You deserved so much better than what I offered you." "I am happy," I said. "And Christian, I hope you find what you're looking for. Real connection, not strategic alliance. It's worth the work." After he left, I sat for a long moment, thinking about the man I'd almost married, the life I'd almost lived, the version of myself that would have slowly disappeared into someone else's expectations. Then I looked around my office, the projects pinned to the walls, each one a space where someone could be fully themselves. The team of designers working in the next room, people I'd hired not for their connections but for their talent and vision. The photograph on my desk, Dante and me on our honeymoon in Portugal, both of us sunburned and laughing, real and imperfect and gloriously happy. That evening, I came home to find Dante in the kitchen, attempting to cook something complicated and failing spectacularly. The smoke alarm was going off. Flour somehow covered every surface, and he looked absolutely delighted with himself. "I was trying to make your mother's empanadas," he said sheepishly. "It's not going well." I turned off the smoke alarm, surveyed the disaster, and started laughing. "Why didn't you just buy them from the restaurant?" "Because I wanted to make something for you, with my hands, something that showed effort even if the result is a disaster." He gestured at the kitchen wreckage. "I'm better at sustainable energy than sustainable cooking." I walked into his arms, and he held me close, flour transferring to my work clothes, the smell of burned pastry in the air, everything imperfect and messy and absolutely right. "Christian came to see me today," I said. Dante tensed slightly. "How did that go?" "He apologized, really apologized. I think he's actually trying to change." I pulled back to look at Dante's face. "He saw us at some event, said he realized he'd never looked at me the way you do." "And how do I look at you?" Dante asked, though his smile suggested he knew. "Like I'm chosen. Like every day you wake up and decide I'm what you want. Not because I fit some plan or serve some purpose, but just because I'm me." That's because you are. He cupped my face in his flour-dusted hands. Every day, Maya, every single day I choose you. And every day that choice gets easier because every day I know you better and every day I'm more certain that this, us, is the realest thing I've ever built. We ordered takeout that night and ate it in our backyard garden, which had grown lush and wild under my care. Tomatoes and herbs and flowers blooming in chaotic beauty, nothing like the manicured perfection of Christian's world. Do you ever regret it? I asked, walking away from your family's fortune all those years ago. Dante was quiet for a moment, considering. I regret the time it took me to walk away. I regret the 2 years I spent in a fake marriage that hurt someone I cared about. But the walking away itself, never. That decision led me to this, to building something real, to understanding what actually matters, to being the kind of person who could recognize you when you walked into my life. Christian said I deserved better than what he offered, I told him. He was right. But the thing is, I don't think I would have understood that 3 years ago. I needed to almost settle for his version of love to understand what real love looks like. So the cream-colored invitation that destroyed your world saved my life, I finished. Yeah, exactly. We sat in comfortable silence as the Brooklyn evening deepened around us. The sounds of the neighborhood, someone's music playing, children laughing, the distant rumble of the subway, washing over us like a lullaby. My phone buzzed. Victoria sending a photo of her latest painting, an abstract piece in vibrant colors, nothing like the safe, sophisticated art she'd been raised to appreciate. The text read, "First gallery showing next month." Terrifying, also exhilarating. Thanks for showing me it's possible. I showed the message to Dante and he smiled. You're collecting people. What do you mean? People who are choosing authenticity over strategy. Victoria. Christian maybe, if his therapy sticks. That's what you do, Maya. You show people it's possible to walk away from what looks perfect and build something real instead. That's what you showed me, I said. No, Dante pulled me close. You showed yourself. I just recognized what I was seeing and was smart enough not to let you go. A year later, we were featured in Architectural Digest, not because of Dante's money or connections, but because of my design work. The article focused on how I created spaces that honored authenticity, that allowed people to be fully themselves without performance or pretense. The photograph they used was of our Brooklyn brownstone, with its slightly wild garden and mismatched but perfect furniture and the sense that real people lived there, loved there, built a life there. In the article, I mentioned the cream-colored invitation that had changed my life. I didn't name Christian or Victoria or the Hayes family, but I told the truth about finding out my fiancé had planned another wedding, and about walking away from a life that looked perfect but would have destroyed me. The response was overwhelming. Hundreds of messages from women who'd stayed in relationships that looked right on paper but felt wrong in their hearts. From people who'd sacrificed their authenticity for security. From those who were considering walking away from the comfortable but false. I saved one message in particular. It was from a young woman named Jessica, 26 years old, engaged to a man from a wealthy family who treated their relationship like a merger. She'd found my story and it had given her courage. I ended it last week, she wrote. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but I keep thinking about your quote. Love built on strategy will always collapse. Love built on choice will endure. I want the second kind, even if it means starting over, even if it means being alone for a while. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I showed the message to Dante that night, both of us reading it together in our bedroom. The room we painted together, the bed we'd chosen together, the life we deliberately built together. You're changing the world, he said, one person at a time. Showing them that dignity and authenticity matter more than security and approval. We're changing it, I corrected. You started this decades ago when you walked away from Hayes Capital Management. I'm just continuing what you began. Then let's keep going, Dante said, pulling me close. Let's keep building this life. Let's keep choosing each other. Let's keep showing people what's possible when you refuse to treat love like a transaction. I thought about the cream-colored invitation that had fallen from Christian's jacket 4 years ago. The invitation that had shattered my world and forced me to rebuild it into something authentic. The invitation that had been the worst moment of my life, and also, somehow, the beginning of the best. Christian had traded me for a business deal, thinking he could have both strategic advantage and genuine love in separate compartments. Instead, he'd freed me to find someone who understood that love isn't divided. It's not parceled out or managed or optimized. It's chosen, every day, with full commitment and open eyes, and the terrifying honesty of letting someone know you completely. 4 years ago, I'd been Maya Santos, Christian Hayes' fiancé, slowly disappearing into someone else's expectations. Now I was Maya Santos Hayes. I'd kept my name but added his by choice, not tradition. A successful designer, Dante's partner, and someone who'd learned that the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what looks perfect to build something real. The invitation that had destroyed my world had actually saved it. And every morning when I woke up next to Dante, his face lighting up when he saw me, I was grateful for that cream-colored envelope and the shattering truth it contained. Because it had led me here, to this life, to this love, to this version of myself who knew with absolute certainty what it meant to be chosen. Not strategically, not conditionally, not as part of someone's 5-year plan, but honestly, completely, and every single day. What would you have done in Maya's place? When she found that wedding invitation, proof that the man she loved had been planning to marry someone else just 2 weeks before their wedding, she had a choice. Stay and accept being someone's backup plan, or walk away and rebuild her entire life from scratch. This story hits different because we've all been there in some form. Maybe not with a secret wedding, but with someone who made us feel like we weren't enough, who treated us like we were lucky to be chosen when really, they should have felt lucky to have us. That feeling of being traded, being second best, being the real relationship while someone else is the strategic one, it burns, doesn't it? Maya walked away with nothing but a suitcase and her dignity. 3 years of her life gone. Her apartment, her savings, her entire social circle, all built around someone who saw her as a convenient companion rather than a chosen partner. She lost everything except her self-respect. And look where that single choice led her. To genuine love, professional success, and the kind of life where she could actually be herself instead of performing what someone else needed her to be. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about recognizing your worth when everyone around you is telling you to be practical, to compromise, to accept less than you deserve because at least it's comfortable. It's about choosing authenticity over approval. And it's about understanding that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the push you needed to build the life you were always meant to have. If this story made your blood boil, if you felt Maya's heartbreak and then her triumph, I need you to do something. Drop a like right now because stories like this need to reach the people who need them most. Comment, I choose myself, if you've ever walked away from something that looked perfect but felt wrong, or if you're gathering the courage to do it now. Let's create a community of people who refuse to settle, who understand that being alone is better than being with someone who makes you feel alone. Subscribe and hit that notification bell because I'm bringing you more stories exactly like this. Stories about people who chose dignity over comfort, who walked away from what was expected to build what was authentic, who understood that real love doesn't require you to shrink yourself to fit. Next week, I'm sharing a story about a woman who discovered her husband had an entire second family, and what she did about it will absolutely shock you. This isn't just entertainment. These are real lessons about self-worth, about recognizing when you're being valued and when you're being used, about finding the courage to start over when staying would slowly kill who you are. Every like, every comment, every share spreads this message further. You deserve to be chosen. Not strategically, not conditionally, but genuinely and completely. So smash that like button if Maya's story resonated with you. Comment below with justice served, if you're glad she chose herself over Christian's fake love. Share this with someone who needs to hear that walking away from the wrong person is how you make room for the right one. And subscribe because I'm building a community of people who refuse to accept strategic love when genuine love is possible. The question isn't whether Maya made the right choice, we all know she did. The question is, if you found that cream-colored invitation in your own life, would you have her courage? Would you walk away? Would you choose yourself? Let me know in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear to find their own courage.